Hey guys, Liam Killen here, and today I'm going to compare some of the latest Wurlitzer 200A plugins to the real thing. So the first thing I'll mention about the Wurlitzer, and I think it's probably one of the most important things, is that there's just something magical about it. It's a very attractive sound, so when you hear it in a room, it sort of just inspires you and makes you want to play it. It's also a really good looking instrument, which helps a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and say that it's pretty much impossible to replicate the sonic experience of the Wurlitzer, and that's a really important factor because that dynamic sort of affects how it performs. Going back to how it kind of has a mind of its own, I'll talk about my Wurlitzer in particular. When I received it, the action was completely messed. A few of the keys in the higher register were pretty sticky, and some of the lower keys were completely dead. So after a couple weeks of playing the keyboard here and there, it basically just fixed itself. The action's still pretty uneven at this point, but it's still playable and it kind of adds a certain charm, like a beat up Wurlitzer sound. I never use the DI input because there's just way too much noise and the left speaker is a little bit distorted. This is something I could probably fix with just a little bit of maintenance, but when you play in the lower register of the keyboard, something inside it rattles. Sometimes the hum from the speakers is just obnoxiously loud. Another thing is that you have to maintain the pedal, I guess with WD-40 or something, or else it gets really squeaky. The point I'm trying to get at here is that maintaining this thing can be tremendously annoying. There's always going to be little problems popping up here and there, and that's something you don't have to worry about with software instruments. Not to mention actually finding one of these things that's in good condition, buying it. At this point they're going for I think $2,500 to $3,000, and then you need to actually have room to put it in your studio. So I'm not gonna lie, this thing's a bit of a headache. Is it worth it? I'll be comparing this thing to Arturia's Wurlitzer 200A emulation, which is $150. As well as Logic's Wurlitzer 200A, which is free. Also, I'm not originally a keyboard player, so I got my friend Felix LeBlanc, who is solid. In this particular example, right off the bat, I feel like the Arturia Wurlitzer sounds very meaty compared to the real thing. That being said, it's relatively noticeable that the Wurlitzer is buzzing a little bit in the lower register, and if I recorded it like that at this point, there's no way I would be able to take it out. I'm not sure what you guys think, super clean meaty or an old dirty Wurlitzer. I think the Wurlitzer wins, but we'll say it's a tie for now. This example is pretty interesting. I find that the Logic Wurlitzer, the transients sound a bit more metallic, which makes it sound more like a Rhodes, but the sustained sounds like a Wurlitzer, so it's kind of like a hybrid between Wurlitzer and Rhodes. The Wurlitzer is by far my favorite in this example. I find that it just responds so much better to being hit hard. I find that Arturia's emulation doesn't really respond well to the loud notes. It doesn't really have that bark, whereas the Logic emulation has too much bark almost. It's like a little bit jagged. As I mentioned before, technically you could go in and change the velocity of each note, but then you wouldn't really have any bark at all. So I think Wurlitzer wins this one. Yeah! That buzz in the low end of the Wurlitzer that I was talking about before is definitely prominent, and I kind of wish that I had fixed the squeakiness of the pedal. It's sort of picking up in the room mic, which I couldn't get rid of. But honestly, I'm not sure if that's necessarily a bad thing. It really depends what you're going for. I think I'm going to try and find an example where the squeaky pedal is like kind of part of the song. Hey man, if Muramasa does it, The Arturia plugin sounds like a completely different instrument in this example. I find it sounds more like a soft pad, and the high end is just not consistent at all. I actually like Logic's Wurlitzer the best in this example until we get to the high notes. They're just like
so jagged.
So I think that the real Wurlitzer wins this one again. This is a problem that could be fixed pretty easily, but the low end on Arturia's Wurlitzer is a bit muddy, and same with Logic. But there's something about the Logic one that I still like. At the same time though, none of them really sound like the real thing once again. Damn. Lastly, I wanted to look at something with a bunch of vibrato. So in all three examples, the vibrato is turned up to 100%. The real Wurlitzer's vibrato, in my opinion, just knocks it out of the park. The other two don't really compare at all, I don't find. I also realized that Logic's Wurlitzer doesn't even have vibrato. It actually has a tremolo effect, so they kind of missed the mark on that one. And so that's it. To end off, I'll say this. There are many plugins out there that are almost identical to whatever it is that they're emulating, but I think it's safe to say that Wurlitzer emulations are not quite there yet. The cool thing about owning any sort of acoustic hardware instrument is that you could mic it any way you want. You could choose from any mic, you could use as many mics as you want, you could place the mics wherever you want, so in that sense, sonically, you just have a lot more options. But with those options comes a lot more work, experimentation, time, money, but also creativity. Is it worth it? I just want to say that I appreciate everybody who watched this video. If you like what you see, like and subscribe. I make videos like this all the time now, so I'll have a bunch more content coming soon. See you guys next time. Peace.